Wasabi guys, Void here coming back at y'all with an informative video this time. Because I don't think I've ever actually covered this topic. I know I'm pretty much the spokesperson for the Commander format, or at least one of them. After the whole standard bannings, I was like, hey everybody come play some Commander. So I might as well just go and teach some people something they might not know. And that is politics. No, not that kind of politics. I'm talking about the politics of a Commander game. The debate or conflict among individuals or parties having or hoping to achieve power. Now that is politics all around, but in the game, 4 different players, or it's usually 4 players, that's the recommended size of a Commander game, are all battling it out, trying to achieve the main goal, and that is to win the game. Now the cool thing about Commander, and it's why I love it over pretty much every other format, especially 60 card, which is usually 1v1, it's a little bit more direct. I still like it, but compared to Commander, there's just more of a social game, there's just more of a game within the game that you don't really have in any other format. You have more than just 2 players there, so the chances of collusion, which seems to be everyone's favorite word within the last year, are extremely high, especially if the game is the usual hour to 2 hours in length. There's definitely going to be a chance that 2 players, maybe even 3 players, decide that they're going to band together in order to defeat one player. And that is very common when it comes to this format. You see a lot of that, because there's always at least one deck at the table, maybe 2 that are a little bit better than the other decks. And it takes a group effort in order to get that player out of the game, so that then you could have maybe an easier chance of taking down the other players afterwards. So it's all within the best interest of the group, maybe not that one player, but everyone else in that group, to take that one player out so that they can then hope to at least stay in the game longer so that they can win. That is politics in a nutshell. Pretty much doing whatever it takes to stay in the game longer. And honestly, I have a lot of funny stories when it comes to lying to people in Commander games. I do it quite frequently, and it's very difficult to tell when I lie to people, especially when I decide to play combo decks. I try to play the poor picked on blue player. I try to play the victim, and I get people to feel sorry for me, and it's happened quite a few times. I remember I was at a Commander Day event at my local game store, and I was in a 4-player pod going up against a Derevi deck, an Animar deck, and a Prosh deck, all of which were going to beat my face in because I was playing a zombie Lady of Scrolls that didn't really have the best answers for creatures. However, I did have 1 card in my hand, so I had to at least stall out, hope that within that turn cycle that Derevi deck, the Animar deck, and the Prosh deck all didn't decide that they were going to swing out at me and kill me, because I don't believe I was doing too well on life at the time, maybe around 10 life. So if I could look like the least appealing attack target, or at least convince some of the players at the table that they needed to not swing out at me in hopes of defending against the other players, that I might be able to stay in the game longer. And I ended up doing that. I just had to lie to them and say that I wasn't the biggest threat at the table, because I knew if I could do that, I would win on my turn. That is politics, again, in a nutshell. That's what you want to do. You want to lie to people, you want to convince people that it's the right thing to do to at least empathize with you for the time being. Hey, my life total is the lowest of everyone's and I'm not even the biggest threat. Wink wink, I have a card in my hand that's going to win me the game. And if I remember correctly, that game afterwards, there were hurt feelings. Not the most competitive event. I mean, they were giving out like packs for prizes, but still, some people don't like losing that way. It's very sudden and very unexpected. But you're not going to really be too happy with yourself at times. You're going to look at yourself in the mirror and just be disappointed with the type of human being you are. How could you lie to people this often? It's so much fun. And an experience that I find extremely rewarding, which you don't really have in any other format, because most other formats, while you could still play multiplayer, you could play Two-Headed Giant and other formats, you don't really have the experience of playing Group Hug anywhere other than Commander. Now, Group Hug decks are some of my favorite because the goal isn't just to overwhelm and win as quickly as possible. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. While you don't necessarily want to lose, that's not your goal. It's not to win as quickly as possible. It's not to overwhelm. It's not to be as threatening. It's to at least persuade others that you're not the most threatening one at the table. You're not the most optimal attack target. A lot of these same decks are very good at BSing other players, giving them extra card draw with cards like Howling Mine, Temple Bell, the usual. Give them card advantage, give them extra land drops, and hopefully you get to play buddy with them for a little while until you decide it's time for them to go. But these decks usually don't do a good job of winning in the end. They usually end up coming in second quite frequently, I find, through my experiences. But still, it's very rewarding making the game last maybe 2+ hours, because it's all about playing good control. It's all about saving players from losing the game, making as many allies as you possibly can, while at the same time advancing your board state, because again, you're going to be the least appealing attack target. So pretty much group hug, one of the best experiences you can have in the Commander format, because it makes the game more political. It's more about thinking how other players are going to react, and that's really what politics are in Commander, how you can play off of your opponent's emotions. And that's really the game within the game I was talking about. You don't have this in Standard. 1v1, it's just attack them, go after them, react to what they're doing, and try to take down that one player. Whereas with Commander, it's not just about taking down one player, it's about maybe strategizing turn by turn what you're going to do to each other player, how you're going to play off of their emotions, which if you can convince a player that they should be more afraid of someone else, you're playing Commander the right way. Now, obviously, you have the decks that are all about just trying to go after every single person. They take no prisoners. They have that attitude about the game, which is fine. I mean, that's perfectly acceptable. I just don't really, I don't think that's really the right way to go about it. It's not very interesting, and I just don't really think that's a rewarding experience. It doesn't really differentiate itself from other formats where you just want to go after and end other players' games like that. But one of the things that I really like about the politics is the drama. You don't really have drama 1v1 too often. Now, you might have some players that rage quit, but in the super casual format that is multiplayer Commander, you have just so much time in between turns that you can just talk to people. It doesn't even have to be game-related stuff. Again, it's the game within the game that you don't have in other formats. You don't really have this time to just talk a bunch of crap in between turns in 1v1 Standard or 1v1 Limited. In Commander, you could just talk so much smack, play the victim, do whatever you want, and it's quite hilarious. Make fun of the combo player at the table. Yeah, there are some cases where there's been bullying at some playgroups, but it's usually all in good fun. No one really leaves with a bad attitude. Even if they end up being the first one knocked out of the game, it's still super casual. The stakes are very low. Prizes are usually not that great. The same locals. I've been going for Commander events, and they usually just give out like 50-cent old F&M promos, old launch promos for pre-release, stuff like that are next to worthless. But we still play. There's still tokens of our victory, so I guess you could say we play for something, but we really just play to have fun. That's what Commander's all about. If you're not having fun, I've said this before, there's no point in playing any game at all. If you can't have fun, you need to reevaluate your life, make better decisions, which is another thing too. It is a social game, so if you have zero personality, it might be a little bit harder for you to play Commander, to play the politics, but it shouldn't be impossible. I'm actually pretty good at playing off of other people's emotions. I'm not the most talkative person in an actual game. I know that might be surprising. You're hearing me talk a lot in my videos, but I'm actually one of the quietest people at the table, because I spend a lot of my time thinking about my turns, what I'm going to do. But when I do open my mouth, when I do talk to other people, it's usually either going to be filled with lies, conspiracy, collusion, etc. All things trying to get my opponents to make bad decisions. If I can make them make terrible decisions, then it's going to be easier to take them out. So sometimes you have to fool around with people. Sometimes you have to play mind games, maybe mess with their mental health a little bit. Do some sinister stuff. But the game is just... I usually like multiplayer games in general, not just Magic the Gathering, but other stuff. Because we're human beings, we're social creatures. We're not meant to be in isolation. It's not healthy for us. And it just feels like even 1v1, it's a little bit more lonely. It's a little bit more quiet. You're not always forced to talk to the other player. Whereas you're usually going to tell more than one person what your actions are going to be. There are multiple different sets of ears listening to what you have to say. So you have to definitely take into consideration maybe someone at the table doesn't know what you're doing. They're not facing you directly. So you have to announce your decisions. You have to be more social. So that's going to do it for this video. Pretty much in a nutshell, politics is a social game within the actual game of Commander. If you're terrible at talking with people, you could still probably find a way to win. Maybe that is your social game, is just not saying anything at all. It works for some people, but talk as much smack as you can. Fool around with people, lie to them, mess with their head, maybe even threaten them if you're that desperate to win. If you can ignite some sort of drama within your playgroup. Now again, we're not talking about anything life or death serious. Can't believe I'm saying this stuff. But if you can just have fun, that's all what Commander's about. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope if you were curious about what the politics of Commander was, that you're not really curious anymore. Hope I could help you guys out with that. But anyway, you guys have a wonderful day. Void here, signing off. See you next video.